Hi, my name's Kate. I am a high school math teacher in the middle of my 19th year of teaching. For today's video, I wanted to do an update all about my unit circle project. So if you've not seen, I've done a couple other videos about my unit circle project. I'll try to remember to link them in the cards up here and here. I think I have two. If I have a third one, I'll link them all in the description below as well, because, you know. So my unit circle project with my first unit of Trig is all about using the unit circle, and I require my students to memorize the unit circle, and then they can use that unit circle when they're finding all of the different Trig functions. And I know that a lot of other teachers do time tests on coming up with those Trig values, and for me, I just want them to have that unit circle memorized. Good or bad, difference of opinions. But one of my favorite things that I do in the unit circle unit of Trig is have my students do a unit circle project. So all of the videos, anytime you guys see my back cupboards, on the top of my cupboards, I do have a bunch of past unit circle projects from the last 3 years that I've taught pre-calc and I've done this project. And so I just wanted to share with you guys a little bit about the project if you haven't seen my other videos, and then I want to share with you some of the amazing projects that I got this year from my students. The basic idea of the unit circle project is that my students need to come up with an artistic representation of the unit circle. I do have a breakdown that I print out for the students that gives them all of the requirements, along with a rubric of how I grade this. I assign this project as soon as we have discovered and learned the unit circles. So to give you guys a better idea of this whole unit circle unit that I teach in Trig, I just wanted to walk you guys through each of those days so that you can kind of have an idea of how things are spaced out and exactly what I do during this unit. The first day of the unit, we work on special right triangles and a review of Trig, just how to solve triangles, how to solve for the missing sides, how to solve for the missing angles. And that really, the special right triangles part of that is setting us up to get ready for the unit circle. On day 2, we spend time talking about what is a radian, and this was the first time that I spent an entire class period on it this year. Now it worked better with some of my classes because others we had 2-hour delays, so I couldn't get through everything. So one of the activities with that we did was this, what does a radian look like? And so my students got these different mandalas and they used the string to measure the radian, and then they colored in just the radian itself. And unfortunately, I only was able to have one of my 3 classes do this. I would have loved to have all 3 classes and had almost 100 of these up on the wall, but alas, this is what I've got. The third class period, we spend looking at what reciprocal trig identities are. So we talk about the cosecant, secant, and cotangent. We look at that. And then we also talk about coterminal angles. So that all kind of is leading up into the unit circle. So our next day, our day 4, we spend building the unit circle with the paper plate. We finish it on day 5, and then I do that project introduction for the students. And then on day 6, we spent time looking at how to use the unit circle. So we worked on that Trig recall, and we did a color by number activity. And I like this color by number activity because it's Valentine's themed, and these gnomes are so stinking cute. Let me show you. So here are the gnomes that my students did. I always print them to a page, so they're super small gnomes. They're really cute. And then just made a fun bulletin board with those. The next class period, we continue working on the Trig recall, and so I have my students do one of the Trig recall mazes that I have, and we play unit circle bingo. I love playing unit circle bingo, so my students get a bingo card, and I actually printed these 2 to a sheet so that I saved paper, and then I've got my little calling cards here that I use to call those and play bingo with the students, and we play a few times until my students got a bingo, a couple of them, and it was a lot of fun to do that. So that's just really practicing on that unit circle. As we're doing this every day when they come in, the students also pick up 2 magnet pieces that are part of the unit circle that I keep in these bins. So I've got the coordinates in one, I have the radians, and I have the degrees. So I always have them face down in the boxes, and I have them laying out when they come in, and they're gonna grab 2 of those randomly, and then I have on my sideboard a gigantic magnetic unit circle, and the students need to place these on there. So we do that when they come in. As a class, we evaluate those, make sure everything's correct, and then I take those down, and then I gave them a blank unit circle, and they had 15 minutes to fill out the unit circle. So that's how we started all of those class periods once we learned the unit circle. So day 7, we played bingo, we did the maze. Day 8, we do the mastery unit circle. So I give the students a blank unit circle. They have 15 minutes to fill out the unit circle. And this is the first time they've done it for a mastery test. So the way that I run the mastery test is they have to get it 100% correct. So you either get 100 or you get 0. Now I do give my students a little incentive if they can get it mastered on the first try. I do give them some extra credit on that, but then I tell them if you don't get it mastered the first time, no big deal. You can still work your way up to that 100%. So I tell the kids, especially this group this year is very conscientious of their grade. So I tell them, remember, if you don't get this, a 0 is going in. What's going to happen to your grade? It's going to tank. And that's okay. And we talk through that, and the kids were really good. I had, I would say about 75% of my students over my 3 classes mastered it the first time. So we do that on day 8 after the mastery test. We work on reference triangles. So talking about, we have a point 5, -3, find all the 6 trig ratios based on that. So plotting that point, using the Pythagorean theorem, setting up the ratios, or talking about, a sine of theta is 6/9, and we know that cotangent is greater than 0, and find the other 5. And so just using the idea of the unit circle outside of the unit circle and doing those reference triangles. So we do that on day 8. On day 9, we review. So I have a scavenger hunt review that I do with my kids that I really like, just with the exact trig values, just constantly working on that because they do need practice memorizing all of those. I think there's 96 of them, so working on knowing all of those. So I like the scavenger hunt. And then they do a worksheet review. And then on day 10, we have the test, and that is when the project is due. So in my class, they had just under 2 weeks, depending on the class. They had about 2 weeks or so to work on the unit circle project. So every day in class, we practiced the unit circle. Every day in class, I reminded them to do that unit circle project. So that's just kind of a quick overview of how I structured that part of trig, and then after that we move into graphing and go beyond that. So kind of giving you guys an idea of how the unit circle project fits into the unit and what my unit looks like. Now, I do require my students to do all of the work outside of class. We typically don't have time inside of class, especially this year with all of our 2-hour delays, all of our snow days. There was absolutely no time left in class to do the project. But I find that every year my students step up and really take this challenge on, and they do amazing jobs. So let me go ahead and show you guys some of the amazing projects that I got this year. This year I had a lot of students just to do posters or something pretty small like that. So I had this one. Now, I'm gonna not be able to show all of everything just because I'm trying to cover up my students' names, but one of my students did the unit circle with a big camera, and I thought that was really cool. This unit circle flower. Now I like this because it wasn't just drawing a flower, but they used paper and they cut out all of the pieces, and so that's what made that one really cool. I did have students, I had quite a few Mike Wazowskis, but I had one student, she did like a real big one, which was neat. I did have another flower, a really big flower. So we have this one right here. And like I said, I had lots of different posters. So I had somebody do basketball hoop. Along with several Mike Wazowskis, I also had several minions. So this student just did a big minion. Had a unit circle car with the circles, the wheels. Another Mike Wazowski. I had a student do the Ferris wheel, but she used little sticky dots to do all the coordinates, so that was just a little bit extra, a little bit different. I did have another Ferris wheel. This person drew more of a circus with the whole thing, so they did a little bit more than just the Ferris wheel, so a little extra. This next one got glitter everywhere, but I really liked, and it's still losing glitter, the unit circle turtle, so they did it on a turtle and used glitter for a bunch of stuff, so that one was really fun, but I just have glitter all over my classroom now. I had somebody draw a big camera. student that's a fan of Stranger Things, so did something with Stranger Things. So some cool posters, some, you can definitely tell some of them went above and beyond a little bit, and some of them definitely just kind of did the bare minimum, which is fine. They checked all of those boxes that needed to be checked. Another poster that I got that I liked was this little alien, we come in peace, but with a pie. So just a little bit, play on words there. One of my students did this really neat little lily pad. And I thought that was a creative way of doing the unit circle. This was one of my favorite ones. They did this little snowman, and it's a little melted snowman. He's so cute. I love this one. And then because it was around Valentine's Day, one of my students did a little sweetheart class. And then inside was one of the little candy hearts, and on the back was the unit circle. I do think it would have been really fun if they had a bunch of candy hearts in here, but again, that's a lot of work. But cute just to play on the Valentine's time of year. And then one of my students did glasses that I need to use to find my angle, and I thought that was just a fun little addition. And so she made just little glasses, just used index cards, right? So it's nothing fancy, but it still looks really nice on the front, and makes them some wearable glasses. Now on to some of the things that weren't just like posters. Okay, so the glasses, not posters. One of my students made this fun little like button out of cardboard, so I thought that was cute, creative. Until the student explained to me exactly what this was, I was like, what is this? So it's this. It doesn't look anything fancy, and when you look at it, just kind of generally what? But then she was like, no, what it is it's a geode. So you crack it open, and then it's all like the geode inside. And I was like, ooh, actually, I really like that. So I thought that was a real creative, a real fun way of doing the project. I had a student make their own little clock. So rather than just, doing the circle, they decided to add a little extra, right? So just a little extra besides just here's a circle and let me put the numbers on the unit circle. I had a student make out of a piece of wood, do a little donut decoration one. One of my students is very much into art, so she used a little paint palette to decorate and do, so you can see some of the information on the front, some of the information on the back, and I really like this one. That was just something I've never seen before, and just showing off their interests. This one's cool. Okay, so the unit circle itself is whatever, but what was neat was that this student 3D printed this little wheel spinner, and then you have the unit circle. So I thought, the circle itself, you're like, oh, whatever, but then took the time to do the 3D printing, and I thought that was really fun. So this student, this is the first I've ever seen of this, and I really like it. So they took a PlayStation game and they made it into, a pie game. So all of the, trigonometry, the game, and they have the information here. They even have like the ratings and the stars and stuff on the back of it, the spine, and then when you open up, the PlayStation game has this. One of my students, another Ferris wheel, but they did this on a canvas, and then they used hexagons for the coordinates. So that one was a really cute interpretation. And then these last ones, really just, I feel like, stepped it up a little bit with either the creativity or just the idea behind what they did. So this one, they made a sundial, and like they have moss on there. There's the sundial. The only thing that was hard, it was a little bit hard, like you can't even see it in the video, I don't think, but they're a little bit, but it's really hard to see the information written on here. But I absolutely love the execution of this one. Just something super unique. Definitely tell that they spent some time on this one. The next one, I'm gonna say a Chinese lantern. I don't want to assume, but that's what I was thinking with this one. So 3 of the 4 sides have the unit circle information on there, but they also put lights inside so that when you turn it on, it does light up. So I thought that that was a really, really cool project. Definitely looks like they took some time to do this one. So that was a fun project. This next project, absolutely not a lot when you just look at it, because you look at it and you're like, okay, yeah, it's, it's a colored. And I got a lot of projects that looked just like this. And it's like, okay, not all that creative, definitely didn't step outside of the box. But what this student did to set aside or set apart their project from others is this is a game. So this is the game board, the unit circle. And then the student came up with all of these rules of how to play the game, plus all of these cards with different effects and different things that happen with the game. And so the students used the unit circle to play the game. And I was like, you know what? This is the best example of you are not great at art. And this student, he was like, I can't draw, I can't do all this stuff. And I was like, figure something, you got this. So a great example of you do not have to be artistic to still come up with an amazing project that's beyond just making a unit circle. So I am excited I've kind of played around with the game a little bit, and I'm hoping as we review for finals that we can have maybe some stations and then students play this game a little bit because it is such a cool idea. Another project that I got was this big ol' gold chain type thing, and this one made me chuckle. I thought it was fun. It's not, again, it's not the fanciest, but it's definitely got some personality, got a little bit of spunk to it. Another project that I got that I really loved, I have to cover up, unfortunately, a lot of the front here because their name is on it really big. But it is this car made out of cardboard. And you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. Except if we zoom in right here, this student used, I don't know, some sort of etching machine to etch all of this. Now, I did tell them a lot of this had to be done by hand, but you know what? I gave this student some props because they definitely went above and beyond and to use the technology to do this. So I thought that was cool. So every wheel has all of the unit circle information on both sides, but also the steering wheel, and then constructed it as a car. So I thought that this was a really fun project. I love this one. I also had students bake different cookies and cakes. So here's the first one, this one, and I had this one, lots of frosting on this, and these students were really creative and they were so good. The last project that I'm going to show you guys is probably my favorite project, only because immediately when I saw it, I knew exactly what it was supposed to be, and then when the student told me what it was, I was like, I knew that. So this right here. It is supposed to be one of those conspiracy theory webs, and so all of everything written on there, so it's a little bit written chaotic, messy, like you would if you're into all the conspiracy theory stuff, but it's still legible, right? So it still has that piece of legibility, but just look at, even though the Post-it notes or the index cards are torn, you're like, that's perfect, that's exactly what it needs to fit this. And so took the time to do all of the string and to do all of this and to put it on a corkboard, and I absolutely love this project. This one's definitely, out of all of them for this year, one of my favorites. There were so many good projects. My students, a lot of them really just stepped it up this year and did some really fantastic projects. So I do want to say that I did, as I was talking with the game, I did get projects. I mean, I didn't go through them all. I've got a huge stack of other projects over here. I did get some projects that were just like the game board of that game, right? Just here's a unit circle. I colored it in green and called it a day, right? So not all of my projects were as amazing and outstanding as some of the ones that I showed you guys. But still, I love the project just because it gets the students thinking a little bit, it gets them working, it gets them, hopefully working on mastering and remembering that unit circle. So if you guys teach PreCalculus or PreCalculus/Trig and you do the unit circle, I would strongly encourage you guys, give this project a try. See what your students come up with. Even if you don't want to give them time outside of class and you want to give them a class period, give them posters and tell them draw something. And they may not be able to sculpt and do all those things, but they can still draw amazing things. It is crazy how talented a lot of our students are with art, and this is a great chance to get those students to see how we can incorporate something that they enjoy, the arts and all of that, into math. And that is why I really love this project and why I did this project initially. I wanted to find a way to incorporate art, which at the time when I started doing this the first year, most of my students were in this kind of art field. That's what they were interested in. So I wanted a way to connect art and math, and that's why I started doing this project. And even my kids that are like, art's not my thing, but I'm into whatever, a lot of them were able to figure out how to make that work with this project, and it was a lot of fun. So if you are interested in doing this project, check the link in the description below. I do have a link for this project for free so that you can do this with your students as well. Any of the activities that I talked about in this, I'll make sure that I leave those in the description below so that you guys can check those out if there are things that you guys are interested in. Some of the activities are free things, the project, the radian string art activity, and some of them are from my TPT store. So go ahead and check those things out, and if you have questions, let me know. If you are interested in seeing other projects that I've received throughout the years, go ahead and check the link, the description below as well, for links to the other videos that I've done on my unit circles, projects projects throughout the last couple of years. You guys will see some other amazing projects. But if you guys liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in following along more with my journey as I teach and do mathy, teachery things, please subscribe. I do upload videos every Friday, but you can hit that notification bell and be notified the next time a video goes live. I hope you have a mathy day.